Releasing software isn't an art, but it is an engineering discipline. And the earlier we catch the defects, the cheaper they are to fix, which brings us the need of continuous deployment. So, hello everyone, this is Sahiti on behalf of Vidureka, and I'll be walking you through this session on continuous deployment. Now, before I move on with this session, all of you just give me a quick confirmation on the chat window whether I'm audible or not. Okay, I've got many yeses, so that's great. So now let's get started with the session. So without wasting any further time, let's look into the topics for today's session. We'll start today's session by understanding what is DevOps, and then we'll look into the different stages of DevOps. After that, I'll deep dive into continuous integration, continuous delivery, and continuous deployment, and then I'll tell you a use case of continuous deployment. After knowing the use case of continuous deployment, I'll tell you the differences between continuous delivery and continuous deployment, and finally end the theory part of the session with the benefits and the best practices for continuous deployment. After understanding so much of theory about continuous deployment, we'll move on to a hands-on part. Alright guys, so is the agenda clear to everyone? Okay, so that's great. So now let's get started with the session. So what is DevOps? Well, DevOps is basically a software development strategy which bridges the gap between the dev side and the ops side of the company. And also, let me tell you that DevOps is not a technology, but it is a methodology. Now, why did I say this? Well, that's because DevOps is a practice of operations development engineers participating together throughout the entire life cycle from design, process to production. In simple terms, you can say that DevOps is a dedicated practice to study of building, evolving, and rapidly operating changing systems at scale. So, as it is really clear that DevOps bridges the gap between the dev side and the ops side of the company, but how does it happen? Like, how does it bridge the gap between the dev side and the ops side of the company? That happens because of the various stages of DevOps. So, guys, now let's discuss the various stages of DevOps. So, as you can see on the screen, these are the various stages of DevOps. Starting with version control system, version control maintains the code. Now, what I mean by maintaining by code, well, take an example like, there are multiple developers writing a code for a particular application. So how will I know that which developer has made which commit at what time and which commit is actually causing the error, and how can you ever revert back to that commit if you wish to make changes? So basically, as you can see here, the complete concept relies on how I will manage the source code. So suppose you consider that developer A has made some commit and that commit is causing some error. So how will I know that developer A has made that commit and at what time he has made that commit and also what has been changed? So all these kind of questions are answered when you use version control system or the source code management with the help of various tools like Git, Subversion, etc. After version control system, we have the continuous integration stage. The continuous integration stage is basically building your application continuously. Now, what I mean by building your application continuously, suppose any developer makes a change in the source code. A continuous integration server should be able to pull that code and prepare a build. Now, when I say build, build is not just compiling the code, but build also includes, validating your source code, reviewing the code, performing the unit testing, performing the integration testing, and also even packaging your applications. So when you talk about unit testing and integration testing, unit testing is the testing of each part of product and integration testing is the functioning of all the parts together. So if you have a software product made of 100 small units, the unit testing is the testing of all these 100 products individually, and integration testing is how these 100 products will work together with each other. Now, consider a continuous integration tool, you can say Jenkins. Now, what Jenkins will do is it will deploy onto the test servers to perform the user acceptance testings with the help of tools like Selenium. And then, once that is done, it will be deployed onto the prod servers for the release, and this stage is nothing but continuous deployment. After your application is live, it is continuously monitored by tools like Nagios, Splunk, which will provide the relevant feedbacks to the concerned teams. Alright guys, so these were the various stages of DevOps. Now let me just summarize it again for you guys. So we have the integration in the middle that is using a Jenkins server. So any developer changes the source code, it will take that code and trigger a build. Once that is done, it will test the source code in the test servers for end unit testings with the help of tools like Selenium or JUnit. And then what happens is it will automatically deploy the tested code right onto the prod servers for release by using tools like Docker, Puppet, etc. And once it is completely deployed onto the prod servers, it is continuously monitored by tools like Nagios, Splunk, or ELK Stack, or any other like that. So as you can see on the screen, in short, Jenkins is the heart of your life cycle as it gives you the entire 360 view of the complete SDLC. So guys, that was a brief about DevOps and various stages of DevOps. Now, as I told you that integration is the heart of DevOps lifecycle, so let's understand continuous integration before we deep dive into continuous delivery and continuous deployment. Now let's get started with continuous integration. So, continuous integration is basically a development practice in which the developers are required to commit the changes to the source code in a shared repository. So, every commit made in the repository is built, and this allows the team to detect problems very early. So, let's understand continuous integration, continuous delivery, and continuous deployment with the help of the diagram that is there in front of your screen. So here, as you can see, multiple developers write the code for the application and all of them are committing their code to a shared repository. Then this repository can be either a Git repository or a Subversion repository or any other version control system repository. From there, a Jenkins server, which is nothing but a continuous integration tool, will pull that code the moment any developer commits a change in the source code. So basically, the moment any developer commits a change in the source code, Jenkins server will pull that source code and basically prepare a build. So when I talk about build, as I previously mentioned, build not only means compiling the source code, but it also means code reviewing, performing unit testing, integration testing, packaging the application into var or jar files, etc. like that. So guys, this was the stage of continuous integration. What's happening here? The developers commit a change to the source code, and once any developer commits a change to the source code, it is automatically pulled by the Jenkins server to perform a build. After this stage is done, then comes the stage of continuous delivery. So continuous delivery is nothing but taking the integration step to the next step. So what's exactly happening here? In a continuous manner or in an automated fashion, we are taking this build application onto the test servers to perform the end user testing such as unit testing or the integration testing. So the advantage that we get here is that if there is a build failure, then you need not go through the entire source code of the application. You can just choose the code which has an error and then you just have to solve it. Similarly, in testing, if any bug appears in the testing, we know which commit has caused that error. So you don't have to check the complete source code to resolve that particular bug. You just have to revert back to that commit and then resolve that bug. So guys, that was all about continuous delivery. Now let's talk about continuous deployment. So continuous deployment is basically taking the built application that you have tested and then deploy it onto the prod servers for release in an automated fashion. So once the application is tested, it will be automatically deployed onto the prod servers for release. Now, this has always said that it isn't a good practice as there are multiple metrics that you have to consider before deploying the code on the servers for release. So you have to consider many marketing factors, many reliable sources, many customer support factors that you have to consider before it is released onto the prod servers. Right? So guys, that was what continuous integration, continuous delivery, and continuous deployment was. Now, let me show you an example of continuous deployment. So you must have heard about this company LinkedIn, right? So as we all know that LinkedIn is a business and an employment oriented service that operates via websites and mobile apps and is mainly used for professional networking, right? So LinkedIn's prior system for software development was more traditional. It involved software branches forked off from the trunk and developed in a parallel manner over a period of weeks or days. So any developer would finish a big batch of code corresponding to some feature and then lobby for this feature branch to be merged into the trunk. So n number of developers would work on n number of features and then they would build a big batch code and then they would wait for their code to be merged on the main branch, that is the master branch. Once merged into the trunk, that is the master branch, the feature would again need to be tested to ensure that it did not break any other new code checked into the trunk at the same time. So any two developers who were working, on two different features, and then both of their features were merged into the trunk, then both their codes had to be tested so that they do not break into each other code. So the system was known as the feature branch system, as it typically included several big batches of code, each written in an isolation by separate team, and then these big batches of code are merged into trunk at once. Working in such a system tended to tightly limit the number and scope of new features matched together each month, slowing down the company's development lifecycle. Looking at this figure, LinkedIn decided to move on from its traditional feature-based development lifecycle to continuous deployment. Shifting from feature branch-based development to the new continuous deployment system required halting of all development for 2 months as LinkedIn trained staff migrated the old code and built out the automated tools it needed to make the system work. Now, the current framework of LinkedIn looks like this. Under this continuous deployment system, a developer writes new code in tiny discrete little chunks and quickly checks each chunk into the main line of software shared amongst all the LinkedIn developers. Then it is subjected to an elaborated series of automated tests designed to weed out any bugs, and once the code passes the test, it is merged into the trunk and is cataloged in a system that shows managers what features are ready to go live on the site or in versions of LinkedIn apps. And once the managers approve it, it goes onto the LinkedIn apps. So guys, this is how LinkedIn moved from its old traditional system to continuous deployment, and it is very evident to our eyes how successful LinkedIn is today. Alright guys, so that was a use case on continuous deployment. Now, moving on with the session, let's understand the difference between continuous delivery and continuous deployment. Continuous delivery does not necessarily involve deployment to production on every change. We just need to ensure that our code is always in a deployable state so that we can deploy it easily whenever we want. On the other hand, continuous deployment requires every change to be always deployed automatically without any human intervention. So, as you can see in the diagram here, once continuous integration stages are completed, the new artifact is automatically deployed onto the production, then we call it as continuous deployment. On the other hand, if we manage to automate everything but decide to require a human approval in order to proceed with the deployment of the new version, then that is a case of continuous delivery. Well, the difference is really subtle, but yes, it has huge implications, making each technique appropriate for different situations. Alright, so now that you know what exactly continuous deployment is, you should also know the tools that are used. So, tools like Puppet, Ansible, Chef, SaltStack, Docker are used for continuous deployment. Now, even though it is said that continuous delivery is better than continuous deployment, there are still few benefits that continuous deployment provides. Those are speed, secure, and improvements. So when I talk about speed, I'm talking about how fast is it developed since there is no need to pause development for releases. Next, when we talk about security, releases are less risky since before releasing the software, testing is performed and all the bugs are solved. And obviously, continuous deployment also provides and supports for continuous improvements. So the customers can see the continuous stream of improvements as and when the bugs are fixed or new features are deployed onto. So those were the basic benefits of continuous deployment. Now moving on with the session, let me tell you the best practices for continuous deployment. Well, the best practices for continuous deployment are so on. The first one that we have on the list is maintain development and test environments to better match to production. So it is often discovered that what seems to work well in development does not work in the production side. This results in much time spent frantically fixing new defects directly into the production environment, typically in an emergency mode. So, to avoid such situations, it is always better that the development and the test environments are always matched. After that, the next on the list is we have deploying staging to every iteration. So when you deploy staging to every iteration, it eliminates long-lived production support branches and the resulting extra effort needed to merge and synchronize all the instances whenever the changes are needed. So whenever you deploy staging to every iteration, it eliminates the long-lived production support branches and also the efforts required to maintain them. After that, we have automating the deployment. So when you automate the deployment, all the steps included in the flow occur in a proper manner so they do not cause any confusion. After that, we have automate testing of features. So when you automate features, the continuous deployment establishes a reliable delivery process, and it also benefits by reducing the lead time. When I mean my lead time, I mean the time required from actually deploying to production very frequently. The next on the list is we have to maintain the staging environment. So for many reasons, it's always observed that both the development and the testing environments don't match. So it is always recommended that we maintain staging environments so that this bridges the gap between the development environments and the production environments. And finally, the last on the list is decouple deployment from release. So when you release your software onto the prod servers, there are many factors that you have to consider that affect the time of releasing. So, you have to consider the market trends, the trade shows, the channel support, the supplier support, etc. like that, right? So the best practice to perform continuous deployment is to decouple deployment from release. Alright guys, so now after going through so much of theory about continuous deployment, let's look into a hands-on part where we'll be deploying an application in headless mode through Jenkins server using the Selenium test files. So now let me open my virtual machine and now let's get started with the hands-on. So the first step to do is we have to create a Maven project in which we're going to include the Selenium code. So for that, let me launch my Eclipse IDE. Once the Eclipse IDE is launched, you have to choose your workspace directory. So I have this as my default workspace directory, and after that I'll click on launch. Alright guys, so my Eclipse IDE is launched. Now what you have to do is you have to create a new Maven project. So for that we'll go to file, we'll go to new, and then we'll choose the option of Maven project. Over here, you'll choose the default workspace location or any other location that you want to mention, and then you'll click on next. After that, you have to choose the archetype and then you have to click on next. Over here, you have to mention your group ID, artifact ID. I'll mention my group ID as maven.org and the artifact ID, let it be hands-on, and then I'll click on finish. So this creates my new project. Now what I have to do is I have to include my Selenium code. So let me just include my Selenium code into the app.java file. So guys, this is what I've included over here. I've included my Selenium Java code here. Since you can see a lot of errors here, we have to include all the dependencies. So to include all the dependencies, we have to go to the pom.xml file and then include the dependencies required. So let me go to my dependency section here, include all the required dependencies for my project. Once that is done, I'll save the file and you can see that all the errors are also sorted in the app.java file, right? Now what we want a project to do is we want it to be continuously deployed. So consider a situation where this project is being run by a team of 10-20 developers are working on this project. So suppose anybody makes a change, right? It has to be deployed and all the other developers should only see the output. They're not interested in what change has been done or how the change has been done. They're just interested in, yes, this has been changed and the output, whether it was successful or not. So that's what basically continuous deployment is, right? So you don't know who is making the change. You just know that the change is automatically done onto the prod servers. So that's what we're going to do now. What's going to happen is we're going to run this on the headless mode because our aim is to show whether it is deployed or not. So once this file has been changed, let me just run this file and show you once. So let me just run this file. And then you can see that it is running on the local host where the address book is opening. So this is what is happening if you do not mention the headless mode. Now what am I talking about the headless mode? So as I just told you now that a team of developers are working, you just want to see the output. Nobody is interested to see how it is done. So in such situations, you use the headless mode. So to include the headless mode, you have to include this argument as Chrome options dot add arguments, and in brackets you have to mention it as headless mode. So you'll type in hyphen hyphen headless. Once this is done, you'll save this file. So now if you run this program, it will not show the application that you just saw, but you have to open it in a Jenkins server to see whether it is successful or not. So if we have to open it in a Jenkins server, we first need to export this file, and then we have to push it on our GitHub repository, and then we'll run and see if it is running or not. So now let's just export this file. To export this file, you have to go to File and then choose the option. But before that, let me choose the directory where I want to export the file, right? So I'll go to Files, I'll go to Documents, I'll create a new folder, let's say Hands-on, and then I'll go back to my Eclipse IDE. I'll go to File option here, I'll go to Export, I'll choose the option Runnable jar file, and then I'll click on Next. Once this is done, I'll choose my app, which has to be configured. So that is app3 hands-on. And then I'll mention my path name, that is documents, hands-on. And I'll mention the name of the jar file, right? So let's say I put the name of the jar file as hands-on jar. And then I'll click on finish. So let me just go back to my folder and see whether it is exported or not. So you can see that the jar file has been exported here. Now, once it has been exported here, as I told you, you have to push it to the GitHub repository. So for that, let me just go back to my GitHub account and then let me create a new repository there. So let me go to my GitHub account first. So guys, this is my GitHub repository. Now what I'll do is I have to create a new repository here, right? So I'll go to the repository section and then I'll choose the option new. Over here, I'll include the repository name, let's say demo for continuous deployment. And then you can mention the description or not. I've not mentioned here. And then I'll choose the repository to be public. And then I'll choose the option create repository. So this will create a repository for me. So as I said before, that we have to push our jar file to this GitHub repository. Let's push this, right? So let me open my terminal and let me go to the directory where our jar file is present. So let's say I say documents, and then over there let me list what all do I have. I have a hands-on part, so I'll go to hands-on, and then let me check if it has a jar file or not. So I'll use the command list, and you can see that we have a jar file. Now let me just initialize the git for this particular folder so that the complete jar file is pushed onto the GitHub repository. So to initialize git, you have to use the command git init, and you can see the output that our git repository is initialized for this particular folder. Now, after that, you have to use the command git add to add all these files to the staging area, and then you have to commit those files. So for that, you have to choose the command git add and then mention a dot, which means all the files in that particular folder. And then we'll type in git commit -m, which will let us type us a message. And in the message, I'll type in pushing files to GitHub repository. Once this is done, you can see that our files have been committed. Now to push this to the GitHub repository, you have to use the command git remote add origin. Origin is basically a variable. You can use any other variable. And then you have to mention the link of your GitHub repository. So let me just copy this link and let me paste here. So this means that your GitHub repository and your local repository are now connected. Now you have to push your files to the GitHub repository. So for that, you'll use the command git push -u origin master. Once you type in the command, you'll be asked the username for your GitHub account. So let me type in my username and the password. And you can see that, all the files are getting pushed to the GitHub account. So let's just wait until it is done. All right, so you can see that it is done. So now let me just go back to my GitHub account and show you if it is done or not. All right, so you can see that our jar file has come onto our GitHub account. Now you have to connect to our Jenkins server, and then you have to build our project there so that you can see that our project is successful or not. So for that, let's open my Jenkins server. So let me just open my Jenkins server. And once you open your Jenkins server, you can see that the Jenkins server asks for the username and the password. So just mention your username and password and then log in. So guys, this is your Jenkins dashboard. Now, once you're into your Jenkins dashboard, you have to create a new job. So to create a new job, you go to the option of new item, and then you choose the job name. Suppose I mention the job name as job 1, and then I'll choose the project type to be a freestyle project, and then I'll click on OK. Once this is done, you have to go to the source code management, and then you have to mention your repository name. So here I'm using Git, so I'll choose Git, and then you have to mention the repository URL. So this is basically so that Jenkins pulls this code and then it performs the actions that are required. So let me just include my repository's URL. So let me just copy this and paste it here. Now once this is done, let me just save and apply this file. So your job one has been created. Now we want the Jenkins file to pull that code. So for that, we have to check whether that jar file is present in our Jenkins workspace or not. So let me open a terminal and go to the directory where our Jenkins workspace is present. So for that, I'll type in /var/lib/Jenkins/workspace. After that, I'll list all the files that are present here. So you can see that you have two folders, demo, demo1. So let me just change read write permissions for these folders. So for that, I'll type in sudo chmod 777, and then I'll mention the path for these folders, right? So suppose I put in demo, and then I'll have to enter the password. Now let's go back to the folder demo, and then I'll paste my hands-on folder here, right? So I'll go to my documents, I'll copy here, and I'll paste here. So you have to mention this directory in your build option in the Jenkins server. So for that, let me go back to my Jenkins server. Let me go to the configure option of job one. Over here, I'll go to the option build. I'll go to execute shell here. And then over here, I'll type sudo su-c, and in double quotations, I'll type in java-jar space /var/lib/jenkins/workspace/demo/hands-on jar.jar. So I'll mention it here, hands-on jar.jar. I'll close double quotations and I'll type in Edureka as that is the super user. After that, I'll save and apply this. Once this is saved and applied, let's build this project and see if it is successful or not. So I'll click on the build now option. Okay, so you can see that our build has been successful here. So let's just open the console output and see. Well, you can see at the end that this session, welcome to Edureka's YouTube live session, that is the application that we deployed onto the Eclipse IDE, and it was deployed onto the prod servers using the Jenkins server. It was successfully done. So all the developers can only see this message, and they can also see that it was successful or not. So as we just saw that the output is successful, that means a project has been deployed successfully. Since it is continuous deployment, that is the case where this program can be deployed by any person in the team, and others can only see the output that something has been changed. They will not know who has deployed it directly onto the prod servers. But as I showed you before, if you run this project on Eclipse, it will run on the browsers, which we do not want in our case presently, as in Jenkins, we cannot open any other browsers, and we only wanted to show the output that it is successful or not. So guys, that's how continuous deployment is performed on a large scale. The complete team does not know who has deployed it directly onto the prod servers, but they just know that there's something deployed onto the prod servers, and they can just see the output whether it is successful or not. So guys, this was a short demo on continuous deployment. I hope you found this video informative. Thank you and have a great day.
I hope you have enjoyed listening to this video. Please be kind enough to like it, and you can comment any of your doubts and queries, and we will reply them at the earliest. Do look out for more videos in our playlist and subscribe to Edureka channel to learn more. Happy learning!